Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and this is part 2 to the part 1 video that I made talking about how to make more cinematic wedding films. So if you didn't check out part 1, then go and check those out. If you did, then thank you very much, and let's get on with the next set of tips I want to talk about in this video. So the next tip that I want to talk about, and it's a huge one and probably deserves its own video, is music. Choosing the right music for your video is really important in terms of trying to get that cinematic feel. I generally prefer to use instrumental music that doesn't have any lyrics, just so that the lyrics and the vowel speeches are not clashing with each other and the viewer are not struggling to hear the speeches, they can hear them clearly. I also used to just choose 1 or 2 songs that I would just use from start to finish, and if it didn't work in the film, I would look for something that worked perfectly, and this can take a long time. I think a better thing to do is to just look for parts of music that you like. So you might like the beginning part of one track, but not the end. Doesn't mean that you have to discard it completely. You can just use that beginning part. Find another track that you like. You can use the middle part, for example. The end part, it doesn't matter. The way you construct the music together, it can be constructed from all different types of tracks. It doesn't have to just be 1 or 2 pieces of music that you need to put together that has to work perfectly. So for example, in this film, I used 4 different tracks to help with the pacing of the film. For the intro, I used quite a cinematic piece, a little bit over the top, but quite cool, just to intro the film.
My love, I was born to 2 incredible parents, into a family that has loved and nurtured me in ways incomparable. Under their covering, I have felt safe, secure, and protected. But today, standing before you, I don't feel safe. And I asked Papa why, and he said, it's because the call to love you is a high one, and it isn't an easy one. Papa has chosen and handpicked you. You are his most prized possession to fulfill great and mighty things. You are no ordinary man, yet God has seen it fit to beckon all of me to give to you. Therefore, thrusting me from a place of safety and comfort into the arms of dangerous adventure. And today I find myself ill-equipped. So this is my other solemn vow, that I will be worthy of this call to love you, and I will be worthy of you.
And then as we go back to the beginning of the day, I used a more calm, relaxed track for the early morning preps, just to give a bit of that morning feel of a destination wedding.
We're really here for one person. We all know. So this is really about my wife. Firstly, I love you so much. I have known, I can say this for certain, I have known that this day would come for many years.
Then later on in the film, there was some emotional music that came in just because the maid of honor, who was the sister of the bride, started to say some really moving words. So for that, it just felt right to change up the music for a little bit of more slow piano.
Harvey, you have a huge chunk of my heart sitting next to you. She's been the jewel in our family's crown for so many years, and now she's being handed over to you to be the jewel in your crown for the rest of your life. You don't just trust anybody with a crown jewel. It's precious, so precious. But Harvey, we've been through our own journey, and I've seen you mature in your love for my sister. I've seen you become her anchor, and I've seen you love and protect her with a fierceness.
And a little bit later on in the film, the emotional stuff was out the way, and just to pick up the pace and the tempo a little bit, another little change of the music just to get ready for the dancing and party shots. So I actually use 3 different websites to get my music from, and at the moment I'm currently using Artlist, Epidemic Sound, and another one that I found which is Upbeat, and they're actually a free music website, so you can actually just sign up and start to get free music straight away, and they actually have a really good selection compared to a lot of other free music websites. And I've got affiliate links to all those 3 sites down in the description as well if you want to check those out. So the next tip I want to give is using slow motion at the right times. Slow motion's awesome, but if you're going to use every clip at half speed or quarter speed, then to be honest, it does become quite tiresome to watch, and the slow motion actually loses its desired effect, in my opinion. So I'll actually film most of my B-roll at either 50 frames per second or 100 frames per second, just so that I have the option then later in post to slow it down if I want, but generally I will only use the slow motion at certain times. It's great to have that slow motion option just in case you want to make a moment last a little longer than it normally would. So examples of this are the moments between the bride and groom during the portrait session. I think those look really good in slow motion. Also moments such as confetti, obviously, they look really good in slow motion. First dance, first look between father and bride. All those moments I think is really great to show them a little bit slowed down, just to emphasize the moment a little bit more. I think slow motion and music tie in really well together, because you might have some music that's quite low tempo and building up to something where slow motion works really well, but then for example having more up-tempo music for say dancing shots and then using slow motion during that doesn't work as well. I would say just go with the regular speed, the regular 25 frames per second, and having those dancing shots in a regular frame rate I think looks a lot better than having the slow motion, especially if the music is quite up-tempo as well. So the next tip I want to give is adding movement into your shots. Things I'm talking about are stuff like handheld movement, for example. It doesn't have to be on a gimbal, just some natural handheld movement. Gimbal shots are great, drone shots with a bit of movement orbiting around. Rather than having everything static on a monopod or tripod completely still, I think having a little bit of that movement, either for example, like I said, dollying in or out, moving from side to side, whether that be handheld or gimbal, or possibly like for example when you're on a dance floor, rather than having just everything on a tripod zooming in, being on that dance floor almost rocking side to side, dancing with them, really gives more of an impact than just a static monopod shot, because then you really feel like you're there with the bride and groom and the people on the dance floor dancing with them almost. Next tip I want to give is a general filmmaking tip, but I think it's really important for wedding films and event filming in general, is trying to use foreground to add some depth into your shots in general. Try to make them look a bit more three-dimensional with a foreground, middle ground and background. This can generally help your shots to look a bit less flat, and when it comes to weddings, obviously there's no set, there's no shot list. You are the one with the camera, need to look for places where you can add foreground, and there'll be a lot of them. You just need to keep your eyes out open, and this can really make your shots stand out and look cinematic if you can look for those things to shoot through to isolate bride and groom, for example. This, rather than having everything completely wide open and no foreground in the image, which can look a little bit boring and flat, just having that little bit of foreground that can add that three-dimensionality is something again that can make your films and your visuals stand out. Next tip I want to talk about is capturing a wide variety of angles. So I see a lot of wedding films that just capture everything from eye level, just standing up eye level and pointing the camera at what they see. And I guess in a way it kind of makes sense, because it's the most comfortable angle for us to stand, just upright and with the camera up at our eye level. But this is another thing where not changing it up can get a bit tedious, having everything at the same level, the same look. So I like to have, shots from a lower angle, maybe sometimes going high, especially when the bride's getting ready, because that's quite flattering. And sometimes on the dance floor, shooting from low can look good, Dutch angles, just changing it up, mixing it up when you can, because everything just shot at the same level, at eye level, just because it feels comfortable is okay. But I think if you want to take it to another level, look for those different angles. So another tip for making sure that your footage is looking more cinematic is just making sure that you keep an eye on the highlights, because having very sort of bright, overexposed highlights can make your footage look very video-like, whereas having highlights that you look after and make sure they're not too bright, you expose for the highlights so that you can see some detail in them, just means that you give your video a more of a cinematic movie type look, because these days from Netflix and all the films that are shot these days, they do generally tend to be a little bit more underexposed than overexposed. So if you want to go for that sort of look, that kind of movie look, then yeah, just keep an eye on those. Make sure that you're not overexposing anything, you're taking care of the highlights. Even if it means that you have more shadows in your image, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think a lot of people in the beginning think that as soon as the meter on their camera starts flashing 2, -2, that they're in trouble, they need to bring up the ISO, or they need to really start to make sure their exposure brighter and bring up the whole brightness of the image. That's not necessarily true. You can be at that -1.7 or -2 on the meter, and it's not a big deal. As long as your shot is how you want it to look, the part of the frame that you want to be lit is lit, and the rest of it is in darkness and shadow, this is fine, and it actually looks quite cinematic. Okay, that's it guys. Thank you so much for watching these 2 videos. I hope it really helped you out. And if it did, obviously leave a like on it. That would be great. Subscribe as well for more future helpful tips and tricks videos. And yeah, I'm going to see you in the next video. Hope you have a great day. Have a great week. See you later.